Instant reaction back here with Bryant McFadden, Barrett Sallee. Iowa goes down. Barrett, how did it happen?
Well, it happened because Iowa was a little bit fraudulent. I think we all knew that their offense was limited throughout the course of the season, and that 2 weeks ago when they beat Maryland, it was a 50-point game because Tua's little brother basically just handed him the football over and over and over again. It's easy to score in that situation. But last week, we saw Sean Clifford go down, and that allowed Iowa to use this ugly offense to find a way to beat Penn State, and it came back to bite them finally. Spencer Petras with the 4 picks. Look, their offense is limited. They were one-dimensional by necessity, and Purdue came back and beat them. And look, credit to Purdue. David Bell came out there and he showed why he's one of the best players in the entire country. Look, Iowa, again, nice little story, but if you cannot move the ball consistently, you're not going to win. And right now, Iowa was more a product of the circumstances than they were an elite team.
BMAC, the Boilermakers feasting on Spencer Petras as they pick him off 4 times in this game.
Yeah, guys, if you didn't know any better, you would have thought Petras was playing against his own secondary based on how well Iowa has been taking turnovers, creating turnovers against teams they played against, right? It seemed like Purdue borrowed the Hawkeyes secondary and they played against Petras because they were phenomenal today. I mean, they were creating interceptions. They were sacking the quarterback. They just flew around and had their best defensive game so far this season, and they needed to. You know what I mean? And then going back to what Barrett was talking about, the limitations from Iowa's offense, yes, they finally caught up with them. They've become one-dimensional, running the football and throwing when they have to. The thing about Iowa, if they win first down, you better believe they're going to run second down and they get into manageable third down situations. But in this ball game, they got behind the sticks. And their quarterback is not the type of quarterback that can bail you out when you get in those situations. So this was bound to happen. I'm just surprised to see it happen today, based on how inconsistent Purdue has been. But I can tell you this much. David Bell was already a first rounder in my opinion, but he's no worse than a top 15 pick right now based on how well he played today.
BMAC, David Bell taking the top off of defenses all season long. Today, 11 for 240 and a touchdown. He now has 14 games with 100 receiving yards since the start of the 2019 season, most in the nation. Like, his separation, incredible, BMAC.
He gives you a little bit of what Rondale Moore gave the Boilermakers when he was there, but he's a better pure wide receiver. You know, Rondale was more of an offensive weapon. You can do a lot with him. Bell is a guy that can run every route in the route tree, do it extremely well, not to mention what he provides with yards after the catch, and in the red zone. I mean, what he did today, he's been doing the entire season. But he did this on a national stage because of the attention Iowa was getting going into this ball game. And that's why I said he was already a top, for sure, first rounder for me. But I wouldn't be surprised to see him be the first wide receiver to come off the board. Now, a lot can happen between now and draft time, but I can tell you this much. Name me another consistent wide receiver, another wide receiver that has been more consistent than Mr. David Bell.
Well, there is not one, although Treylon Burks might make you eat those words because he might be the best receiver in the draft. That dude has hands the size of a 30-inch TV screen. But here's the thing with Purdue and David Bell. And look, Jeff Brom got that huge extension after they beat Ohio State a few years ago, but Rondale Moore was there. That was when he was a true freshman. He needs a playmaker. Brom needs a playmaker to make that offense click. Doesn't necessarily have to be a pure superstar like we have with Bell and Rondale Moore, but it has to be somebody that at least takes the attention away from the defense so we can use that tempo, so we can spread it around. So this is what the Purdue offense is supposed to be. I think maybe they lost sight of that over the last couple of seasons, but what you saw today against Iowa, sure, you can look at the scoreboard and think, Big Ten, defensive slugfest or whatever. No, this is what Purdue wants to do, and they did it effectively. They did it on the road, and that's a huge statement for that program moving forward.
And Barrett, this isn't a fatal loss for Iowa. They still are far and away the best team in the West, in the Big Ten West. They can still get to the Big Ten championship and upset, let's say, Penn State or Ohio State. So what does this loss mean?
Well, I think that it might cost them the college football playoff. Okay. I think because of the way they play, if they were to go to the Big Ten championship game and even beat an Ohio State team or, whoever they meet out of the Big Ten East, you're still looking at style points. And the landscape around college football right now, we're looking at, okay, well, Georgia's doing Georgia things. Cincinnati's got a clear path at this point now that Iowa's done. And then, Alabama's still flirting around the mix, and we know about Oklahoma and everybody else. So if you're a very, very ugly one-loss Big Ten champion, is that enough from a style point perspective to get you in? My guess, based on how the landscape of the season probably will look like, is no. But again, we're sitting here in mid-October. This season is already a lot like 2007. I mean, we're talking about Cincinnati going to be the number 2 team in the country when the polls come out tomorrow. South Florida was the number 2 team in the country midway through the 2007 season. So this is tracking in that direction. But right now, if you're an ugly Iowa team and you have one loss to Purdue and still win the Big Ten, it would take an extraordinary set of circumstances to get in the playoff.
No question, Iowa playoff chances, they're disco dead. They needed to be undefeated, at least going to the Big Ten championship game. That won't happen. An ugly loss to Purdue today on a national stage. And remember, they left a touchdown out there with that touchback call in the ball game. Clearly could have been another 7 points for Purdue. But I think this really hurts Ohio State. Right? We believe Ohio State will get to the Big Ten championship game. And I think they really needed to have a huge big-time signature win on their schedule to improve their playoff hopes. And not having an undefeated team to meet up with in the Big Ten championship ball game could hurt their chances. And I'm not saying they still won't have a legit shot to get into postseason play, but a lot needs to happen for Ohio State. But this was an ugly loss. I think the best situation for Iowa to be in, to have a legit shot to get into the playoffs, they need to be undefeated, at least going into the Big Ten championship game. They needed to be undefeated. That's not the case anymore. And like I said, their chances are dead.
Purdue upsets Iowa 24-7. 12-game winning streak is over, but one streak continues. It's kind of tongue-in-cheek here. Iowa has allowed 24 points or fewer in now 29 consecutive games. Thing is, it's a loss and not a good one. B-Mac, Barrett Sleep, appreciate it. Great stuff there as Purdue pulls off the upset in Iowa City, knocking off the number 2 team in the country, Cincinnati. You're on deck. You know what else is on deck? B-Mac and his podcast. All things covered on demand. Check him out with former LSU star Vikings corner Patrick Peterson, talking to some of the biggest names of both the sports and entertainment worlds. All things covered. Download and follow today.
Want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.